Welcome back to the Alternative Spring Break. I am Greg Corbin, and this is the Philly session. And today we have none other than entrepreneur, storyteller, artist, and business owner and founder of Harriet's Bookshop and Ida's Bookshop as well, Janine Cook. So it's great to be on camera with you. It's great to have this conversation. I'm an admirer of your work for many different reasons. Of course, we have our own friendship as well for years. And what you have done has truly been a blessing. And it's incredible to watch manifest and evolve. I mean, I'm amazed at some of the things you've been able to pull off. I really am. Like, seriously. You're gonna catch all these flowers. It's gonna bloom through this whole conversation. Catch all the flowers, all right?
I appreciate it, and I need to practice just taking it in,
Yeah. So tell us, who is Janine Cook?
Whew, that's a good one. So Janine is my name, right? I'm named for my aunt, and so that's important because it's a name that is passed down. I'm the middle daughter of James Cook and Celia Cook, and we can trace it, we can keep going back. And so somebody was like, we get to start having conversations where we name our lineage and we give thanks for Maggie May Cook, and we give thanks for James Cook, and we give thanks for, Arthur Dunbar, and we're like really just going down the line of the people who make this moment possible, just from a biological standpoint. And so I'm the child of many. I'm a child of all of that. I'm also a writer and a reader. And so they would ask Toni Morris, they'd be like, oh, you doing this? You editing for Random House? You writing all these books? You doing? And she was like, really? I'm just a book person. And I think that's similar, right? Like all of it comes back to stories in some way or another, whether that's curriculum development, whether that's writing books, whether that's a children's book, whether that's, speaking, whether that's opening a bookshop, right? It really is a part of being a part of a tradition of griots, a tradition of storytellers, a tradition of people who understand that like the story is a technology, that it's the medium by which we travel through time.
Quote, story as technology.
I think that's my sister. She might have told me that. So I want, just in case, we like to
shout out to Jazz, your sister too.
Hey, it was just like, we twin flames.
I know. But story as a technology, can you elaborate?
I mean, I think it's like story becomes this medium, right? Like, how is it that you're able to have conversations? We're able to have conversations with Frederick Douglass because he left us his words, right? We're able to sit with him and like hear his voice, right? Like that's time travel in many ways, right? Yeah. How is it that you're able to see countries you've never been to because right? That's time travel. That's omnipresence. That's all of these things that we attribute to God. Many of us attribute to God, but it's why do they say that in the biblical sense? Why do they say in the beginning was the Word and the Word was with God and the Word was God? Why? Oh, because this is this thing that's much larger than I think we've been. That's a book. Nah, it's actually a pretty significant piece of, she calls it, I think, technology. You could call it what you want to call it.
Right,
I know you've had the experience. Yeah.
And like thinking about story as technology and being in your bookshop, as I look around, I know from conversations with you and from watching you talk that we're in a book.
Yes.
That's such a creative way to look at creating a bookshop. It's not like walking into some mainstream shop where it's just books and coffee.
Yeah.
Like we're literally in a book.
Yeah.
Where did that inspiration come from?
I knew that it was like a gallery meets a bookstore meets a monument to Harriet. And so what does that mean? And that just keeps changing in my own mind. And then if I read something and I feel inspired, so this particular design is inspired by the 1619 Project, which is a book that sits at the center of a lot of controversy in our current society. And I'm like, well, as opposed to running from that controversy, let's have these conversations. Like, what is it that's making it controversial, right? What is it about this book that makes people want to ban it versus like opening it? Like, what is that? Why is this book sitting at such an interesting crux? And like, let the bookshop be a space for those dialogues. And so the space is all of those things. It's paying homage to these four mothers.
And who are the four mothers?
So there's 4 mothers. I would say that the 4 mothers of this bookshop are Zorna Hurston, Octavia E. Butler, Alice Walker, and Toni Morrison. Yeah. And so you'll see them. They're all, it's lots of clues. They're all like embedded in the space in different ways.
The way you are culturally in tune and aligned, right, with the story is a technology piece and how we're in this lineage of conversation that continues to persist and evolve is really, really an insightful look at developing a space.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because there's the biological piece. You named your lineage. You named what psychologists would call a genogram, right? And who those people are. But there's your family tree, so to speak. Yeah. But then there's a spiritual.
Then I come from a literary. Tree. Yeah, I'm part of a literary tradition for sure.
Yeah. And what does it look like? What does it feel like to build on a literary family tree and tradition?
That's why sometimes when you're saying, "Oh, you did this," and I'm like, "I didn't," I'm just doing the job. I'm just doing the job that was given to me. But it often feels otherworldly. Yeah. Many things unfold that I'm just like, wow, how did that happen that way? Even down to the fact that we have a space. It's like, people were telling me no a lot. People were telling me no a lot. And like we were saying earlier, like what they were really saying were like, not right now. Or like you said to me, they were protecting me and making sure that I made it to the space where we belong. But I feel guided and I feel protected.
That's powerful.
Yeah,
that's really
absolutely.
Powerful.
Absolutely.
And Harriet Tubman, like it could have been Sojourner Truth, it could have been Ella Baker.
And it will be.
Oh, speak on it, speak on it.
It will be.
Speak on it.
It will be.
Why Harriet Tubman as the origin story for the string of bookshops that you're opening now?
Harriet and I have been in conversation, I think probably since I was 8 or 9.
Wow.
And so it's the voice I'm most familiar with, if that makes sense. It's who I started this investigation and this like intentional, my book is called Conversations with Harriet. Like I've been having these conversations with this person for some time. And so I couldn't think of anyone who I would want to honor more. Who I felt like, especially then, right? So you gotta remember like 3 years have gone by, but back then it wasn't super popular to say like, I'm gonna create a space that honors somebody who I believe deserves to be honored and hasn't been honored correctly by the society. And I don't even want y'all to have nothing to do with it. I want it to be independent so that we can do it how we know it needs to be done and without somebody else's foot on the neck of it. And so that's the origins of like creating a space for somebody who I knew and I know didn't get you talk about flowers, right? Like Frederick Douglass talks about Harriet and how she walked by the light of the moon. So her work was he was out, he was talking, he was getting praised, he was taking photos, he was attending events, he got to get dressed up. No, this is at the same time that Harriet is like, all right, it's winter time, I'm about to take another trek down. I gotta make sure people don't know who I am, can't identify my face, I gotta make sure, I'm moving through the cold, right? You know how cold it was that other night, right? Like imagine, right? And like, and I don't know who I'm bringing back out with me, what their issues are gonna be. This is a person who, in Frederick Douglass in his time, was just like that. She moves by the light of the moon. No one is singing her praises right now. Yeah. Like we can't even let people find out who she is and what she's doing. And so I find it to be a great honor to even be able to sit with Harriet and even be able to say her name at all. Not to mention be able to like share her with people and there's this whole thing, and I told my sister yesterday, I was like, never again in front of me am I gonna let somebody like demean or diminish Harriet Tubman or Rosa Parks or Dr. King or any of these names that have been said a lot, so-called a lot, because I don't care how many times people say a name. If you don't know nothing about that person, if you really haven't got to and sit with them, it doesn't matter how many times their name gets mentioned, right? You could talk about Mrs. Rosa Parks all you want. If you don't really have a relationship with what it was and who she was, like, Rosa Parks is a militant? No. Nobody's talking about Mrs. Rosa Parks as a militant. Why? Because that, you know what I mean? And then they try to be like, oh, we're so tired of hearing about Rosa Parks. You haven't even met her yet.
Yeah.
You haven't even met her yet.
But I think what's deep is we're speaking in a conversation that is in some ways multi-dimensional. Even the way we're talking about Harriet Tubman, right? Like you said, that's the conversation you're familiar with most, right? And some of that's from reading, some of that's from spiritual downloads, right? These things really do exist. But on a physical plane, building something up and really enacting it and getting it into something that is established. What is one of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome in this process of creating this business of a bookshop?
Yeah, my own internal voices about my own ineptitude, right? And so it's while also hearing these. You said I got that line in a poem, and it says, "You hear those whispers? Those are the ancient voices speaking life into our left ear and singing songs into our spiritual mind." And it's like so there's this whole being able to differentiate. Because there are some voices inside, that are like, oh, who are you to have a bookstore? You can't even, you read slow. Who are you to have a bookstore? You haven't read everything. I know people who read way more books than you. I know people who way smarter than you. I know people who, they speak way more eloquently than you. And that's not nobody outside saying that. That's internal voices that I have to manage and say oh, I know that. Now I'm used to, I know that voice that tries to come and say you ain't good enough, or you don't know something, or you don't look the part. That's but in getting used to telling that voice you don't reign supreme in this space. But yeah, that voice could do a number. It could do a number, I remember right before I opened, I was just like the night before, I took all the books down. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this. And it's just that battle, that internal struggle is real. And then it was just now I have to build back up my confidence and the knowledge that this is not even about you. This is not just about you. Get first of all, right? Get yourself, check your ego real quick. You're a part of the spectrum of freedom. So don't forget that there's a lot of people who came before you that made this moment possible, and there are a lot of people who are going to come after you who are needing you to fulfill your piece.
The idea that right before you're about to launch this, you almost took out your own flame.
And then 1,000 people came the next day, and the bookshop was alive all day long with amazing energy and to the point where I had to stand outside because it was just too many people inside. We needed to make space.
You've had some remarkable moments, right? Like where
you wouldn't believe.
I mean, to the young people, to the stakeholders, to whoever watches this video, I want you to understand Janine is one of those people who can imagine something and things actually do come to pass. I think, and that's when we say magic, that's magic. To be that creative. And some of the cool things you've had many people come through here. I believe Will Smith, when he launched his book, came to Harriet's Bookshop, told people to come visit the store. Absolutely. Right? Yeah, and even with Will Smith and his people, Will Smith was amazing. But his people was like, oh, you're gonna stand over there, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. And I was just like, whoa. Y'all, just remember, what's the name of this bookshop? Harriet's Bookshop. Exactly. Harriet's Bookshop. So Harriet is gonna sit at the center of this conversation. All the other stuff is nice. Will Smith is amazing. He's done an amazing amount of work. He wrote a great book. This bookshop is dedicated to Harriet, and we're gonna make sure that doesn't get lost. And we all have to agree on that before we can move forward. And they, of course, agreed, because it was just well, then why would you pick this bookshop if you didn't know what it stood for? And you do know what it stands for. Right. Yeah. She's a pillar. Yeah. For all of us. For all of us. To show us what's possible. Right. Yeah. I mean, and humanity needs the spirit that Harriet Tubman possesses. Yeah. We need that in this moment, especially as as we see our freedoms get trampled on. There's not many people who have that same spirit that she had, where she was like, nah, it's either you give me my liberty or you give me death. Yeah. I will die for this. There's not, you look around, there's not many people with that. There was no negotiation. No. There was no idea of creating cognitive dissonance. No. Right. And it was and it's not just about me. That's the other thing. That's the big Harriet, that one
That piece of her attracts me a lot. It's just like, yo, you got out. You was good. What is it in a person that says, I'm good, but I'm still not good if my people not good, right? Like when they say that line, I think Jay-Z says it, right around here we measure success by who's successful next to you. That's a different way of thinking about what success looks like in a city. That's a different way of thinking. Jeannine, Harriet's could do great, but Harriet's isn't doing great if Amalgam is closing. Harriet's isn't doing great if Marsh and Main is closing. Harriet's isn't doing great if, you know what I mean? Like that's just not, that's not great. Yeah. That's not great.
The ecosystem.
It's the ecosystem. And we, that's my sisterhood. How do I feel and look if my sisters can't stand and I'm standing? No, we stand together. And it was Harriet's sister, I believe, that kept her going back. Right? It was like, I gotta get my sister. Yes, I'm gonna get these other people. I'm gonna support these other people, but I gotta get my sister.
What was the process like to do a GoFundMe campaign to own this building? Like, when did you know it was going to be the next step?
So that's another Harriet conversation. I sit in silence. I don't know about other people. I encourage silence. I encourage you to get as much of it into your life as you can, and because in that silence is when I can hear. And it was just one of those sessions where I was just like, came out of it and I was like, oh, we gotta get ourselves into a position. Okay, we opened the bookshop. 6 weeks later, we're told we have to close it because of the pandemic. Yeah. And like this whole process has been like this like real like roller coaster of a experience. And so in that, it was just like, well, there was nothing in place in the society for businesses that were 6 weeks old, right? Like, how are you gonna sustain you? Like, it was just like, yeah, you can't apply for anything. Your business is a tiny business. It's not even, you can't say that you need these resources, not when all of these other businesses are applying. And so we had to figure it out. And this has been an exercise in figuring it out. It's been an exercise, and Mama Sonia Sanchez called me before I opened that morning. And she was just like, gave me a lot of wisdom, but one of the things she kept telling me was like, you're not doing this by yourself, right? You cannot do this by yourself, and you're not gonna do it by yourself. Right. And to remember that you're a part of this larger community, and like to not ever feel like you have to do any of these pieces by yourself. And so buying the building was a part of that conversation, which is like, yeah, you can do these things and you can do it, but you can't do it by yourself.
I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this, because I've been watching.
What?
What's the coolest thing that's happened so far?
Oh, I don't know. It's all cool. I don't know. It's so cool. It's like Alice Walker, I will say, is like, that's when I knew. I was just like, okay, we on something different right now. This is different, because I promise you can look at my phone and my notes. December 31st, every year I write down like, what would make this new year an amazing new year? Like, what would make you like, what would knock your socks off if it happened in this new year? And I wrote down a conversation with Alice Walker. December 31st. By April, I had reached out, because I do my due diligence. I was like, okay, I'll reach out to her people. No response. I get a call in April, and she says, hey, we were wondering if you want to like facilitate a conversation with Alice Walker. What? What? Are you kidding me? Like, is that even a question on this planet?
Wow, the Alice Walker. Color Purple Alice Walker.
Exactly. So that was a part of when, like, you get a call from Sonia Sanchez. You get, these living legends. Nikki Finney hit me up. Like, we just want to make sure you know that you have love and support. Like, it'd be like stuff like that where I just be like, what? Like, yeah. So that conversation with Alice Walker, and I think what was central about that conversation, because I asked her a lot of things, but one thing that she told me that really stayed with me is that, Jeannine, don't forget that love is a generative force. Like, it's a force. So use it, right? Like, use that love. Like, go and get as much of it as you can. Be in as much of it as you can. Like, feel it, use it, put it to work. That love is for a reason. The other thing she said to me, I was asking her, I said, you know, how can we be better sisters to our sisters? And so I wanted to understand, like, how do I love my sisters in a way that is even more than I love them now? And she said, listen to them. And she was just like, even when they say things you don't want to hear, and that. Alice freaking Walker. So the coolest, probably, yeah. Yeah, probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's like we did Vogue magazine and Will Smith and Nicole Hannah-Jones, and you know, it's like you could just go on and on. Al Roker. Al Roker was like Janine Cook, da 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 da. Like I was like, I can't believe Al Roker saying my thing. It was just like, what? Al Roker. We did a 6-week series with MSNBC. We did. I mean, like you know, Oprah Winfrey shouted us out. Like I can't. The list. A group of women who I can't even say their names flew me out to LA to build a pop-up bookshop in their home so that we could do a book club. Right. So it's just bigger than me.
Opportunities are abundant.
It's bigger than me. My cup runneth over, for sure.
What do you know now that you didn't know when you started this journey?
I know for sure about the power of organizing, and that organizing and activism, protest, doesn't have to look a certain way, that there's no box for it, there's no label, there's no right way to do that work. So I know that for sure. I know for sure that, you know, there's something bubbling up in our society, and, you know, it's going to require a lot of trust, which has been beat out of the society. But in order for us to get through this next phase of things, it's going to require that we access that and practice it and be examples of it. You know, I know for sure, like, you just can't do any. I'm like Mama Sonia used to say, like, you're not doing this alone, like none of it, you know. And so that I can access people, that I can call people, that I can, you know, that when they were, you know, they was wielding bats down the street right here during the uprising, talking about all types of stuff that I can't, you know, even say on camera. And people from all over the city came and stood in front of this bookshop. People who look like me and people who don't. And they stood right here and they were like, not here, not here. That will not happen here, you know. At one point when we were like, you know, building the bookshop outside, and people were like, well, what could we do? I couldn't think of what people could do. I said, just bring water. And day after day after day, there would be bottles of water lined up, you know, cartons of water, so anybody could have it. It was just, and so, you know, I know about the power of the tongue. I know about the power of the tongue. I know about, you know, trusting your vision.
Trying to figure out the right way to end this, because I'm looking at your book, right? Harriet's Bookshop. This book that shares your story and your journey. This horse is
we didn't
real
even talk about the horse.
to the story.
Yeah, well, because they told us we needed social distance, and it was like, okay, well, we still got to get the books out to the people. So
tell everybody if they can't. This question. Why did you walk around like, because they're going to Google you and watch this. But please say, in preface, the reason why I rode around on a horse was because all I saw when I saw the picture, I was like, Janine did it. Like, you can't outdo somebody who is riding around on a horse saying, take these books, take these books, take these books. Like, what?
Yeah, I mean,
where'd you get a horse from? Like,
in the middle of the pandemic, so we had to socially distance, which was a huge issue. If you have to do retail sales, you need to do hand to hand. How you gonna do that and stay separate from people enough that you're not, you know, endangered or endangering? And so I was like, oh, I know, I'll just get a horse. Oh yeah, I know what I'll do, you know. And so it's just, I don't know how to explain it, you know.
And then you got a horse though.
Yeah, and then I called the Fletcher Street Riding Club, like, hey, you know, I wanna learn how to ride. Like, I need a horse. Like, I need a horse for this work that I'm doing. And they were like, sure.
Because you look at the Western movies, there's always some guy on a horse with a satchel and they got guns and a 6-shooter.
Yeah.
Here you are riding through the streets of Philadelphia, all over the place, with books and satchels.
Yeah.
Books in a bag.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're handing out literacy, storyline. You're handing out narratives. You're handing out technology.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
that.
We're a part of a spectrum, and so I'm just doing my part for right now. And you know, it won't last forever, but for right now, you know. So what they say, I'm here for a good time, not a long time.
Oh my gosh, yo. Thank you on this episode of Alternative Spring Break,
Absolutely.
the Philly edition, brought to you by Words, Beats, and Life. We have been blessed and inspired by the one and only Janine Cook, founder and owner of Harriet's Bookshop and Ida's Bookshop as well. If you're coming to Philly or you're going to South Jersey, make sure you visit Harriet's Bookshop in Philly, and in South Jersey, Ida's Bookshop. Thank you so much, Janine.
Absolutely.
For being so
Thank
amazing
y'all.
and
Appreciate
brilliant.
it. Thank you.
You shine in your life.
Thank you. Forever.
Thank
Thank
Peace.
you.